Every other healthcare experience has trained you to expect longer appointments, right? 60 minutes of physical therapy, maybe 45 minutes of occupational therapy, longer evaluations, longer sessions, longer protocols. And somewhere along the way, we were taught to believe then that the longer something takes, the more thorough it might be. So when you watch your child get a chiropractic adjustment that lasts just under 2 minutes, your brain naturally throws up a red flag. Wait, that's it? And honestly, that's the right question to ask. Who wouldn't be concerned by that? Thank you for bringing it up. But the answer flips everything most parents have been taught right on its head about healing. A neurologically focused adjustment is not shorter because it is doing less. It is shorter because of how powerfully the nervous system responds to precise input. And for many children, adding more input would not be more helpful. It would actually overwhelm an already overloaded nervous system. And once you understand the real mechanism behind what happens during those 2 minutes, the entire concept of more time on the table stops being the right yardstick. Because what looks shorter is actually doing something extraordinary. And the proof shows up in the hours and the days that follow. So this video is for the parent who has watched their child move through therapy after therapy, supplement after supplement, protocol after protocol, and still feels like something foundational is just being missed. And if you've ever wondered whether a 2-minute adjustment could actually move the needle, this one's for you. Today I want to talk to you about a chiropractic adjustment and what it actually is, and also what it is not. How a precise neurological input reaches the brainstem, the vagus nerve, and the cortex. Why pediatric adjustments are short by design. Why frequency matters more than duration when it comes to healing. And how insight scans can help make the invisible nervous system much more visible for us to see and us to explain. One of the most powerful examples our profession has ever documented happened inside a level 3 NICU office, not a chiropractic office. A newborn baby boy had suffered a traumatic birth that included a whiplash-type injury to his upper neck and brainstem, a hypoxic brain injury, a condition called PPHN, which stands for persistent pulmonary hypertension of the newborn. Because he was hooked up to every machine and every monitor you can imagine, the neurophysiological impact of those first gentle adjustments was visible in real time. His heart rate dropped, his respiration improved, his oxygen levels rose, his whole body relaxed and released that tension that was so locked in. And what happened in that NICU is not just a one-time story. It is the same type of thing that happens quietly every single time a child receives a neurologically focused adjustment. You just cannot always see it spelled out on a monitor the way that it was that day. So first we need to understand this. An adjustment is probably not what most people think it is. That pop or that crack, that sound that most people associate with chiropractic is simply gas releasing from joint capsules, right? That sound has nothing to do with whether an adjustment worked or not. The real action is not structural. It is neurological. It is the precise neurological signal that the structure then sends to the brain. A specific adjustment activates mechanoreceptors, proprioceptors that are packed into these paraspinal muscles along the spine, right? And then all those paraspinal muscles carry the highest density of muscle spindles everywhere else in the body. That sensory burst races up the spinal cord to the brainstem, to the cerebellum, into the prefrontal cortex. It gives the brain a clean read on the body's position, tension, and tone. The goal is to correct subluxation. And subluxation is not just a bone out of place. Subluxation is a 3-part pattern that includes physical misalignment, joint fixation, and then neurological interference between the brain and the body. And for children, this is incredibly gentle. The pressure used is often compared to checking the ripeness of an avocado or nothing more that you would push on your own eyeball. It is gentle, it is specific, and child appropriate at every stage of life. So how can one small input affect the entire nervous system? The adjustment delivers a controlled burst of neurosensory input that the brain then uses to recalibrate how it processes information from the body. The signal reaches the brainstem, and the brainstem controls foundational systems like heart rate, like breathing, like digestion and arousal. These are the systems running every minute of every day. From there, the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic nervous system can begin to engage. That helps shift the body out of sympathetic dominance, which is the chronic fight or flight state that so many dysregulated kids are stuck in. In fact, a 2016 study published in Neuroplasticity showed that chiropractic adjustments produce measurable changes in prefrontal cortex activity. I'm not just making this stuff up, guys. And what matters the most is because the prefrontal cortex is the region responsible for executive function, attention, and autonomic regulation. This is why one adjustment can affect things that seem completely unrelated, like sleep, like digestion, like immunity, like focus, like emotional regulation, like behavior, because the nervous system controls all of it. And this is also why children with very different diagnoses often share the same underlying pattern of dysautonomia. On paper, one child might have anxiety, another child might have ADHD, another may have sensory processing challenges, and even another yet may have constipation or sleep issues or immune struggles, or all three at the same time, because those tend to happen together. But underneath those different labels, we often see the same foundational pattern, a nervous system that is just stuck, stressed, and struggling to regulate. And that is exactly why the same foundational care can help so many different kids in so many different ways. So now let's talk about why pediatric adjustments are short by design. A child's nervous system can only absorb so much sensory input before it becomes overwhelmed and starts to shut down. Think of the nervous system like a computer with too many tabs open. When too many programs are running at once, everything slows down, or eventually it'll just crash. And a child stuck in sympathetic dominance is already overwhelmed by school, by screens, by sensory input, by food sensitivities, by stress, by the daily demands of life. They do not have a lot of spare processing capacity left. So adding 30 to 60 minutes of hands-on input would not necessarily be more thorough. And for many kids, it would actually trigger the same meltdown response that parents see after the dentist or a long therapy session or a crowded event. Way too much input, right? That is why a precise adjustment may take roughly 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Then the brain spends the next 24 to 72 hours doing the actual work of releasing stuck patterns of stress and reorganizing the nervous system. Sometimes the most healing thing that we can do is give the nervous system less to process, not more. And that brings us back to then the frequency. Because when it comes to nervous system healing, frequency beats duration every single time. The brain rewires through something called neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity has one major rule. It is repetition. A foundational study in 2008 outlined that repetition, specificity, and intensity drive lasting neural change, not the duration of one single session. There are 168 hours in a week. If a child receives 2 to 3 adjustments per week, they may only receive about 6 total minutes of table time, but that leaves roughly 167 hours and 54 minutes between those visits happening. And those hours can either work for the child or they can work against them. That high frequency helps keep that release ahead of the reload, because kids are constantly reloading stress through growth spurts, through illnesses, through sensory overload, poor sleep, school stress, emotional stress, and the normal demands of development. The adjustment is the catalyst, but the brain does the healing between the visits. That is why frequency matters so much more. It is not about how long the child is on the table. It is about giving the nervous system the repeated, specific input it needs to build a new pattern. And this is why and where the insight scans become so important, because the nervous system is the invisible. It's invisible from the outside. You can't see it. You cannot always tell by looking through a child how much stress their system is carrying. But those insight scans help us objectively measure nervous system function through 3 tools: HRV, SEMG, and then thermal scanning. HRV, or heart rate variability, shows how adaptable the nervous system actually is, the autonomic nervous system, and it helps reveal vagal tone. SEMG then shows how much energy and tension the muscles are holding along the spine. It helps us to see whether a child is actually stuck gas pedal or showing signs of fatigue, right? And then the thermal scan shows where autonomic dysregulation is concentrated along the spine. And this matters because 2 children with the same diagnosis can show completely different scan patterns. And that is why personalization has to happen at the neurological level, not just a symptomatic one. The scans help guide care planning. They help guide technique selection, how we're going to adjust them. They help us target primary subluxation patterns, where we're going to adjust them. We do not guess, we test. So if your child has been through every protocol, every supplement, every therapy, and the missing piece still feels like something deeper, there is a reason. The foundation is neurological, and the right input delivered to the right place at the right frequency is what helps shift the entire trajectory of your child. Your child does not need more labels, they need answers. And at Foundations Chiropractic, we use insight scans to help find where the nervous system is stuck and stressed. Then through those gentle, neurologically focused chiropractic care adjustments, we help restore the communication between the brain and the body. Get the scans, find the foundation, trust the frequency. Click on the link in our bio, send us a message, or schedule your child's insight scans today to get started.